James, I didn't even take off for that one. That's when there's trouble over here.
How you doing, Chris?
Good. How you doing, Larry?
Long time no see.
I know. It's so bad ago.
Yeah, I know. Hey, that was a nice thing. Yeah, thank you for all your help. You know, it's really look bad when you're doing it. Yeah, the daughters have done it. So I have a question. You know, we have patients on that. We have here. Everybody come out there, take a look at it. It's our. Yeah. Somebody out there before Saturday.
How you doing? I know, we should be taking advantage of these days.
Yeah, so that's coming up. Good. Appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Chris was mentioning out there at Veterans Park, there's an electric box that kind of.
I definitely would take a look at that. I mean, we had that one, just his machine. You have to on it for the strip.
That's right.
If the breaker was on, then you can have the on.
Saturday, so.
At their end.
Yeah.
I'll have it look at Friday.
Well, I already talked to the mayor.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it back. Something to his the additions up here. No. Some.
After we were last night.
And it's supposed to be, this is she said the council.
I haven't heard.
Yeah, just like
This must.
yeah, that's all we. Yeah, because he just ran on.
I have to beat everything figured out.
Well, we think so. Seven's not gonna get anything another day or so because of the water, so that stinks. And then Keith texted me and said they were trying to get the wells, but the well, all the communication.
I can remember shooting on the weather. I was trying to be.
And I gotta talk to my issues.
Hello.
And so they.
No, I didn't. I heard it this morning and I thought about it. I was running a little slow. Pardon me?
Yes. Nice little kickoff.
That trips the transport. That's it, right, but it's out. You know, so it's on that side, so. Music 7 versus power, it doesn't have a house.
I'm sorry.
Very well, good weather.
It's just a whole bunch of. It's 100%. So. Right. And that's the only thing we can think of.
I already got one, I was there.
Go back to school. You know, like this. It's kind of stasis. I don't know the person who doesn't realize this. I can accept this. Saturday. Just here, the city is part of it. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what doing very well. Still on this. Yeah. Like some of the ones like things start moving in your track.
Well, because three things. It looks good. The sudden switch. Nobody just.
One. So yeah. Yeah, city that. Well, this may. It's, and it's. Like I said, I can take. These are self-reflected. Well, they.
You know, we it's all the time.
Saturday.
Your action review, I get the right consequences. From what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Jody, the furniture is in town. They will be here Friday morning to put it together. Somebody get the deed tomorrow. They're gonna come down Thursday. That way they'll be completely empty when they show up.
Hi. Have some vendors that are outside.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully scheduled. Blood pressure's increased. They probably turn over pretty quickly. Yeah. And they don't know. It's trying to keep everybody on the.
You live up the street from my car. No, you didn't either. Maybe I've seen it here. I don't know. I was family ready to start. Almost, well, 29.
Yeah, hey, Joe.
Family readiness, Army Reserve. My daughter retired 10 years ago. She was in for 20 and a half years.
Yeah, they need.
Gretchen called me. Steve helped.
Yeah, I read it when I got.
Called him to- My car.
You know, we're talking about the soccer. Chairman for a long time. Sitting on use the revenue.
Maryland.
Oh, that was. Then also.
I knew what her job was.
All right, time is 6:30. We'll go ahead and open up public comment. So, public comment gives any member of the public an opportunity to speak on any item that's not on the agenda for up to 5 minutes. And so, it'll be between now and 7 o'clock. Barb Bushy.
Barb Bushy, 2037 East First Street. I'm here to make an apology to all of you. At the last meeting when we could talk, I quoted some figures that I read and I didn't read the whole thing. And so I want to apologize. After the meeting, I found out from Jody. I asked her and she straightened me out. I was concerned because I thought monies that were coming or that would be taxable, I thought that was monies that were spent. And there was an enormous amount of money for alcohol. And I thought, good Lord. But I was wrong. And I just want to apologize to everybody here. I just wish that there'd be more people like there were that night. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say tonight. Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead and sign in here, Chris, first. Yep, you're fine. Yeah. You're an official kind of guy. So.
Well, something all right. Okay.
Chris Magson, 1405 South Ridge Road. I'm here on behalf of the Veterans Park Committee. We have several projects going on, which you guys all know. Most of what we're going to have going on, we don't have to come up here and get approval and so forth. But there's one item that I'm assuming you won't let me do on my own. So at some point, we'll talk about it tonight a little bit, and then it may have to be on the official docket at some point. So for right now, we have on the island coming in to the park. Since 2017, when we started the project, we've always called it Liberty Island. And we've been working on that piece, paid off everything's been paid off for a little while now. And now that we've come into some more funds to finish up that project, we're going to put a Liberty Bell and Statue of Liberty right there in the front of the island. There's already the footings and the pad has already been there since 18. And so now what we're doing is we're looking for approval for an idea that we had. And I did talk to someone in city management about how high we can get it there, because as you pull in, there's the pad. And this is a representation of what it'll look like. So the Liberty Bell, the top of the format, so where the brace where the Liberty Bell will be at is 10 foot high. And then we have a Statue of Liberty that will stand on top of that. And the top of her torch total will be at 17.5 feet. I talked to a city representative about the ordinance and so forth. They said, just don't go over 20 feet. Perfect. So we met that mark. Well, as we were getting going, I said, well, how are we going to light up her torch? And we talked about lighting regular lights and so forth. And I said, well, I got a great idea, but we have to get approval. We have the eternal flame there at the park. I said, why don't we get approval to tie into that same gas line, not a separate one, same gas line that's feeding the eternal flame, and have her torch be an actual eternal flame like the one we have there. So that's our idea. That's what I'm bringing up to the city council today. But again, at some point in time, I know to get by the legal aspect, we might have to be officially on the docket. The goal of this part of the project, I really don't believe we'll have done before winter hits. So more than likely it'll be a springtime thing. But our contractor is working very hard. He may surprise me. And so we may have to talk about this possibly in October if weather permitting and all that, we're able to get that. So I wanted to bring up that about running the gas line from the eternal flame under the ground in the center of the island up to where we need it here. And then our contractor will take it up from that point. So any questions?
We can't ask any.
You can't ask any
Yeah.
questions. Wow. This is the first time no one's asked me questions. So. Perfect.
Grace, were you the fundraiser at Eagles? Yes. Yep, yep.
Well, if we have time, I got a couple other items that actually are. That works out.
Oh, I think you had a couple of minutes left. So we are supposed to be up to 5 minutes one time. So just.
Well, then staging. Not that you guys are important, I don't want to hear everything you have to say. I'm out. Yep. So far, anyway. Out of the blood drive.
Oh, yeah.
We made goal the first day, we went over a few, second day we were a couple under, so we. Came out.
Watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
For
smaller
later.
than it used to be for that one, but we have some really small. I have one on the fourth of July. I have like 2 or 5. But they're small.
Oh, thank you. I like her. These cutters on shirts they sell, they're real. Pretty good shape. Say it again. Oh, no. That's everything. Didn't I just see you? Really is exciting though about libraries. You know, you just get that done, see it moves.
No, I've been on
You know,
a trail, cheers.
well, and everybody's worked hard.
Well, and it's, with well, COVID and culture. They have people watching people that are so, you're doing it anyway. I've been impressed. Really a strength of character most of
Well,
them.
sometimes that sort of thing is just what it takes. is some
Yeah.
few passionate people that are committed.
Yeah. And yeah, it had a rough start. But that's what it took to get you started. So,
It's just valuable, appreciate all of that.
I think that, you know, some special people listen to tell. Yeah.
How many people are on that set committee or board?
Well, it was a sign committee. There's sort of four of about 6 of us, I guess. They did the design work with their, they hired the architect and contractor and all kind of stuff. And pulling their way along. But you can change. We can. Somehow I ended up turning the kitchen. I got real smart about kitchens. It's a process of a lot.
Is that pretty much gonna be a commercial picture?
Oh, no, and that.
Gonna be that.
It's
Oh, gotcha.
just a big kitchen, but I have Lori Dahl help me design it. He said it's a serving kitchen, so it doesn't have to need all those criteria, triple sinks and all that. And how could you possibly do it because you're the one using it.
Right.
So she has one.
Bless you.
Size in depth solution. Size. But then the drain has to be. We can do this. So I.
Hmm.
So. This is. I do. It's just a purpose thing. But you have to have 4 feet on each side, so that the one.
For those who just entered, we have about 9 minutes left. This is open public comments. So gives anybody an opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on anything that's not on the agenda. If you do so wish to speak, there's a sign-in sheet up here. There's also comment cards. So far.
Well, we'll all come together.
Yep.
It'll just all come together.
You said Vince stopped by and gave you that sign. You found it, you just had it. That's funny. That's good. Yeah. I mean, it fits like perfectly. lot of remotes over there. I can never find my TV remote. You know, we got those the Amazon ones now where it's about this big. Yeah. Here. I don't think Gatorade will work though. So. Here. It's from my last meeting. We're getting. Yeah. Okay, welcome everybody. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll go ahead and open up the regular city council meeting. Time is 7 o'clock. The Open Meetings Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. At this time, we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Thank you. 8 council members are present, Mayor.
Item 1 on the agenda is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the September 27th, 2022 regular meeting. Councilman Yerger.
Yes, I'd like to ask council to move items 11 and 13 to after item 14, please.
So move items 11 and 13 after 14. Okay. Are there any other changes proposed? Councilman Gibson?
No, I'm sorry, I don't approve the motion.
Okay. Okay, take a motion to amend the agenda, move items 11 and 13 after 14. You made the Councilman Gibson?
I did make that motion.
Okay. Councilman Yerger,
Second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, take a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Vaughn,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, next on the agenda is mayor's comments. Just like to mention a couple of things tonight. Number one, we had a library groundbreaking ceremony today at 5 o'clock out at the Key Memorial Library. Want to thank all those that were able to attend. Was really well attended. It was great to be able to mark and celebrate how far we've come on the library project. I know our library director, Laura England Biggs, and Linda McLean, our library president, and obviously the city council and the city's been really supportive of the library expansion. And just want to, first of all, thank the city council and thank the city for how far we've come on that. 2018, the voters overwhelmingly passed a bond referendum for the library expansion. And so it's a really great day today when we can celebrate the groundbreaking. So just wanted to note that and the accomplishment. Also, next Tuesday, we'll have a special meeting on the comprehensive plan and the long range transportation plan. It's October 4th. So just also wanted to mention that. And finally, we do have a very special service award to give out tonight. It is Chief Todd Burnt. 30 years of service with the Fremont Fire Department. Todd has been serving the community with the Fremont Fire Department since 1992. He started as a firefighter and obtained his paramedic certification in 1995. Todd was promoted to fire lieutenant in 1999 and to fire captain in 2007. And in 2012, he was promoted to fire chief and has been leading the department for the past decade. Chief Burnt, please come up and accept your award for 30 years of service, and thank you very much. Okay, that concludes my comments for this evening. We'll move on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Councilman Yerger.
I'd like to remove item 3 and 11, please.
Okay, Councilman Ellis.
-6, please.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Susan Jacobus, 1805 Northeast Street. I just had a few minor questions on number 2 and also on number 5. Thank you.
I take a motion to approve consent agenda items 4, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Councilman Legban,
I make a motion to approve 4, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Councilman Gibson. Okay. All right, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 2 is a motion to approve September 14, 2022 through September 27, 2022 claims and authorized checks to be drawn on the proper accounts. Go ahead.
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street, Fremont. A few questions I had. I did notice that we had the Bell Street Bridge Rehab Project that definitely was approved. I just wondered what the status of that was. You're approving 25 grand plus for payment on that. And I just wondered, with the engineering group, at what point will the work start to begin on that, if anybody can answer that? I know there's issues with it, and it was on the repair project on the 1 and 6 year. And then also we have Barrett Home on there for 51 grand, and I believe that was on the wastewater treatment. And also we had 2 weeks, so you had in excess of 55,000 above and beyond your typical attorney fees. And I wondered if that's the completion of Barrett Homes for that. It shows that that was the wastewater treatment bond council, if that was the beginning and the end of the council on that. And that was pretty much it.
Okay, comments from council? Councilman Yerger.
I know that Dan's not here, so maybe Jody could answer. Do we have responses that we could give for those 3 questions?
I'm sorry, no, I'm not able to answer the first question relative to the Bell Street viaduct. I can tell you that Baird Home and what that is, it's for the bond attorney for when we issued the bonds. That's the price that we pay them to prepare all the legal documents and do the calculation. Well, in this case, they wouldn't have had to do that calculation, though, whether or not it's a taxable or tax-free bond sale. But that's their portion. Typically, when we issue bonds, we pay them, and that is a one and done. And I'm not sure if there's a question on TUIG or more a comment.
I saw in that, it looks like we paid 44,000 and some dollars as well. I did notice that also myself. I assume that's for their prosecution
Correct.
of normal
Yes.
case activities. With regards to your comment on the Barrett Home, is it typical that Barrett Home does our bond work that you just described?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I would take a motion to approve the claims. Councilman Legban,
I make a motion to approve.
Councilman Jensen,
Second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 3 is dispense with and approve September 13, 2022 regular and September 6, 2022 special city council meeting minutes. Councilman Yerger.
Yes, I had that removed. I'd like to correct or add some language. I don't know if I call it correct. I'd like to add some language to the minutes on item 22 and 24. I'd like to add the words in that with regards to the continuance, that we were to continue the item to the next council meeting to allow, this is the add, to allow legal time to research and answer 3 outstanding questions from city council members Ellis, Jensen, and Yerger. And then on item 24, which was another motion to continue, I'd like to add the words at the next meeting, after continue the item to the next meeting, to include or insert to allow staff time to receive and research outstanding questions from city council members.
Okay. Hey, are there any questions for Councilman Yerger on this would be amending the minutes?
Can I add something?
an additional amendment. I noticed upon looking at the minutes that the minute software that I used to create the minutes, it duplicated the number 1 on there. And so I would just ask the council, basically make that correction. The numbers would then flow correctly, 1 to 2 to 3. So
Okay.
just correct the numbering on the minutes. So.
Councilman Vaughn,
Frank, could you reiterate your comment?
Yes. So do you want me to read the whole resolution or just the inserted language?
Just answer it.
The inserted language would come after the word meeting, which was a motion to continue, to allow legal time to research and answer 3 outstanding questions from city council members, Ellis, Jensen, and Yerger. I didn't enumerate the specific details of those, although they're in the video, but just to say that we continued to get 3 questions answered.
any other questions from city council? Okay. That is a motion to amend the minutes. So, Councilman Yeager, do you want to take both of those at once, or do we going to do one at a time, or?
I don't have any preference.
Okay, so this would be a motion to amend the minutes on both of those items, and then amend, the clerk has the amendment to correct the numbering as well, so. Councilman Gibson,
I move that we approve the amendments.
okay. That was be a second, I would assume, because you had the motion, right, Councilman Yerger?
Either way, he can make
Okay.
the motion. I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, so vote on the amendment.
Item 24. Anything.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, motion to approve the minutes as amended. Councilman Gibson,
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 5 is a resolution 2022-174 authorizing the mayor to sign the care and share program agreement with Fremont Area United Way, authorizing Fremont Area United Way to administer the care and share program. I have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Lottie Mitchell, Customer Services Director. This is a request to renew the Care and Share program with Fremont Area United Way, it was developed in 2009 from the Board of Public Works. And it is designed as a mechanism for customers to donate funds to other customers who are struggling to pay their utility bills. So it's been a program that's been around for a while, and so tonight's request is just to renew it. I did want to point out that it has been quite impactful, especially in years where there were no other funding sources available. You'll notice in 2020, 2021, we had flood and pandemic dollars, and so then the impact of the Care and Share dollars was less, but those funds are now going away. They've been utilized, and so Care and Share will again become a very impactful fund for the community members who are struggling to pay those utility bills. The Department of Utilities does not administer this program. We simply are the vehicle to solicit funds and move those funds over to United Way. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Thank you. Comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. Thank you, Lottie. You answered one of the questions that I had on it. This is a very impactful charity. I guess United Way does a lot of good in our community. And my only question that was asked of me, which I would like an answer to, which is pretty simple. Do all the funds that remain in the program that are left untapped, they remain with the United Way and they remain in the Caring and Sharing Fund? That was the only thing that I was asked to ask. So thank you.
Any other comments? Any additional comments from council? Councilman Yerger?
Well, I did have an observation. I don't know if that's the specific question that's been asked here, but so the table that was on the staff report, Lottie, On the 2021 line, the funds remaining shows 1952.34.
Mhm.
Does that amount then carry over into the 2022 funds from DU, the 53.52.10? Or what happens to the remaining funds if they're not in that balance? Because as I look at the 54.27.64 funds remaining on 2022, that looks like that's the first two column totals. So is the 1952 get in there too, or is it held separate, or it just goes into general funds, or?
The 1952 rolled over to the first column, care and share funds received from DU. So it does roll over year to year.
Okay. Thank you. I don't know if that specifically gets the other questions that were asked, but that was one that I had. So thanks.
Okay, I do have Councilman Vaughn. Brad, can you shut off?
Sorry.
Another question for you, Lottie. I noticed that 2022 spend is for January through July and only $75 and change comparatively to years past. That doesn't equal half a year.
Yes, so United Way had available funds from other sources. They always spend their most restrictive dollar first. And so other funding for sources were able to meet the needs of those members that were needing some assistance. And so there's going to be a nice balance rolling over to 2023.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yep.
Lottie, I just got a question, kind of a plug for the utility. If someone wants to be able to give to this, how do they do it? I mean, do they just call the customer service and I guess tell us how they can get involved in doing this?
Absolutely. So customers can contact customer services and we have a form for you to fill out. We can bill you monthly. You can add it to your regular statement. We have approximately 80 customers who participate right now on a monthly basis, recurring basis. The highest donation is $50 a month. The lowest is $1 a month. So we're averaging out about $3 a month for those 80 customers who are donating. We also get one-time donations. So if you didn't want to be billed every month, you can make a one-time donation to us. You can drop that check off with us. We'll get it to United Way. And we've had approximately $1,000 come in that way for 2022 so far, for July. So yeah, very easy to sign up and you let us know, we'll give you the form and we'll take care of the rest.
Councilman Yerger.
One other thing before I make a motion to approve that you might want to just add to your statements and the mayor's question. I'm assuming that there may be much more demand this year because utility rates are going to be higher and perhaps have some surcharging on them because of the availability of resources and the like. And so demand might be even greater. It might be good for the public to perhaps understand the demand that you expect versus what it's been in the past, if you have a thought.
Well, we never know how many customers we're going to have who will be in crisis. We do know in years past, the number of households that have been assisted through this program. Yes, utility prices are expected to go up and we would assume that the demand for this program is going to go up as well. But it's one of those things that it's hard to put a finger on and put a number to.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'd make a motion then at this time to approve resolution 2022-174.
Councilman Legband,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 6 is resolution 2022-175, authorizing agreement for street and parking closure for historic downtown Fremont Fall Festival. Councilman Ellis.
I just need to recuse myself,
Okay.
so we can go ahead with a motion.
Okay, Councilman Jensen,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Vaughn,
I will second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0 with one abstention, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to item 12. Resolution 2022-168, approving the request of Gallery 92 West to use 6th Street from Broad to Park Streets for Veterans Day exhibit. Tyler, is this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. this item, we did receive responses back from the requestor. I'm gonna get to that page here. They did provide a map, and the time period in which they're requesting, it does include the setup and tear down time. And then provided you guys approve it, they said that then they would contact the other businesses in the area and make them aware of the closure. And then she said she'd make herself available if you had any additional questions, so.
Did she fulfill all the requests that we asked of her to do?
So we did ask about whether they were going to use the parking lot. They haven't asked to use the parking lot, and so I'm thinking they're not going to use the
Okay.
parking lot for this event, so.
Questions for our clerk on this item? Again, this is a carryover item that we had additional questions, so. Councilman Yerger,
Yeah, you probably want to take public comment. I was just going to make a motion to approve, but I'll wait.
sorry, are there any comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing none, go ahead.
Okay, well, certainly, I'm glad to see that the applicant provided the information that we were asking for, and so I make a motion to approve the request for closure.
Councilman Lakeman,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on would be item 14 is ordinance 5630 to approve government salary. We'll have our HR director with the staff report.
Good evening, Jennifer McDuffie, Director of Human Resources. This is the government salary ordinance again. We are adding the Assistant Director of Public Works position. And then based on conversation had at the last meeting, we have also added city physician back in at $100 an hour to match the contract that has been proposed with Dr. Everly. So I am happy to take questions. We are asking tonight that if everybody's okay with it, to move forward to final reading so that we can start recruiting for this assistant director position.
Questions? Councilman Yerger,
I have a couple. I'm curious as to why the position of appointed officer treasurer isn't listed as one of the job titles with a pay grade and salary range.
I don't believe that position is paid any additional. That's combined in the finance director position, correct, Jody? Or there's no additional compensation for that responsibility?
There's no additional compensation
Okay,
for that. It's not necessarily, it could be in city code, but it's not by definition a combined position.
Well, it sort of is a combined position in city code, but I agree with you, the salary ordinance, to my knowledge, I've looked back several issues, I don't find it as being a listed compensation range, and so we've not sent it out to the consultant to have the position of treasurer evaluated
no, I don't
ever,
know.
as far as you can recall.
As far, yeah, since I've been here, we have not, no.
Okay. I noticed also that there's a box down below in subsection D for the city prosecutor. I assume that is for the position that we approved for Tohig, the extra attorney that's prosecuting, since Adams and Sullivan is not, is that supposed to be what that position is?
The Tuhig is operating under the office of the city attorney, just as an independent contractor. I think that amount was actually what we were paying the county when they were doing it.
Okay, so it's no longer valid.
Right.
We're paying outside counsel under this contract $175 an hour.
Correct.
So is the city prosecutor is not one of the temporary part-time hourly positions that we currently have, but we still have it on our salary ordinance. because we have another contract instead. Should we be removing it here because that's not what we're paying?
That would be your decision as council.
Well, I'm trying to get to the point where we have a couple of officer positions that are under contract, the city administrator and the utilities general manager. Those are on the salary ordinance. And they are under contract. And the city prosecutor is under contract, I guess, as a subset of legal or whatever, and therefore we don't have that position filled. So I'm wondering whether that ought to be removed. We have a city attorney position on the salary ordinance, but we don't fill that job because we hired an independent legal advisor with regards to Adams and Sullivan under contract to fill that. So we have sort of a mixed bag as to whether or not the ordinance reflects those positions that are under contract versus those positions that aren't, and I wondered why our practice isn't consistent with regards to either listing or not listing positions that are under contract and filled.
Because from a wage and hour HR perspective, these amounts are for employees. And when you talk about the contract with Dr. Everly, with the city attorney's office, with the city prosecutor's office, those are independent contractors. And from a wage and hour perspective, those are two separate things and they don't affect each other. Now, you've pointed out some state statutes in that might alter that a little bit, but from a wage and hour standpoint, this is for employees who receive a W-2, not independent contractors.
Would you agree with me then that since we're not using the city prosecutor position, listing the $375.75 monthly rate is not necessary at this time because we have hired an independent contractor to do the work?
It's also not necessary to remove it either.
Sort of begs the question, if you're willing to pay an employee $377 and you're only willing to pay an independent contractor $175, I don't know why they'd come back and offer to do the work for $175. We're listing it. And that was the argument that was used for the other positions, that we had to continue to list the city administrator, we had to list the DU manager because we needed to go out and know what the negotiating rate would be. And now we're saying, well, for the city prosecutor, it's okay if we list a rate that's almost more than double what we're willing to
It's
offer.
$377 a month.
Okay, so $175 an hour, I guess, would be $377 a month would be a lot less, I guess. If he's working any kind of a full-time load. At any rate, I don't understand why we're listing that when we're treating other positions on the salary ordinance differently. I guess I'd like to see that removed. Yep.
Is there any other questions for Jennifer McDuffie? Okay. Comments from the public? Okay, seeing no comments, any additional comments from council? Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, this being there doesn't affect us at all. We're not using it right now, but that doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. That there's no reason to remove this at that time.
Councilman Legband,
I'll make a motion to hold second reading of ordinance 5630.
Councilman Sukram.
I will second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to suspend the
Oh,
rules.
so hold on, gotta do second reading. My fault. I'll stay there.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees, repealing ordinance number 5624 and all of the ordinance, parts of ordinance in conflict herewith, providing for publication in pamphlet form and providing an effective date on second reading.
Councilman Jensen.
I will now make a motion to suspend the rules and hold third and final reading of ordinance 5630.
Councilman Sukram.
I will second that.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
I'll have final reading.
Ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska pertaining to pay plan for officers and employees repealing ordinance 5624 and other ordinances, parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication and pamphlet form and providing effective date on final reading.
Cast your vote.
Ordinance is approved 8-0.
Okay, moving on to item 11, which would be a resolution 2022-179, approving and confirming the appointment of the city treasurer as Dan Goebel.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I'd like to explain why Dan is not here. He's actually at the joint public hearing for the LB 644 hearing that's required. We did not need to participate in that, but he felt it important in his new role to be there. So I apologize for his absence, but that's why he's not here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goebel was is our new finance director. And so I asked him if he would be willing to serve as also our city treasurer. And so he agreed. And so this is just confirming that appointment tonight. Councilman Yerger.
Well, so I had some questions about this and I've just shared them with legal and I think I've shared them with you as well, Mayor. But for the rest of council, I would like to point out that Fremont Municipal Code 2-511 effectively merges the positions of finance director and treasurer. And it does so by default language. And that is if you don't appoint specifically a treasurer, then the director of finance is in fact the treasurer, according to municipal code. It's in the last sentence of 2-511. And since we didn't do anything else with Fremont Municipal Code to merge jobs differently in state law 16305, we would have had to have done that by ordinance. And we haven't really done anything. It's been by default. So I'm puzzled by the fact that we're making an appointment specifically here to fill that job without making a corresponding change to city code that says it's something other than default, because we're now making an appointment and we're actually merging two positions effectively. And we haven't really done that by ordinance to change 2-511 to merge other than by default. So my recommendation to council is this is all effective already. We don't need to make this appointment. And I guess I'd ask legal if if the legal department doesn't agree with where the sentence says in absence of the treasurer, the director of finance shall assume the duties of treasurer. So in fact, by moving him from interim to full-time finance director,
Right.
he essentially took on this role immediately.
The only issue I would have with that is he is an officer and as the treasurer, and officers should be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by council. So
I think state law says that we can merge the jobs of any officer or any other employee under employment. In this particular case, the finance director is not an officer, but it's another appointment. We did not put in the salary ordinance that we just passed, salary for a treasurer.
Right.
And so I was trying to get and that's the reason for rearranging the agenda. If we weren't going to fix a salary and we're saying the salary is 0, then effectively what we have today in city code of defaulting the treasurer position to the director of finance under the pay scales that are there for director of finance already cover us completely with regards to state law's merger and state law's requirement to have our salary ordinance for the jobs that we have. And
that statute on merging officials is on appointed officials and elected officials. And he was a hired official under city code. So
I don't think
this is just the cleanest way to do it and make him the treasurer.
The 16305 says the city council may at its discretion by ordinance combine and merge any elective or appointed office or any employment or any combination of duties of any such office or employments of the city. So that would include the director of finance, even though it's not an officer position. And that is the position that Ms. Sanders held for a number of years as the director of finance.
As she was
She
appointed.
was also the treasurer.
She was appointed treasurer too, and confirmed by the council, as you know.
I'd make a motion to table this indefinitely because the motion to appoint is unnecessary. And we changed nothing in the salary ordinance to list this as a separate officer of the city of Fremont. Therefore, operating under the existing section 2-511 should stand without change, and it's appropriate. And he's already the treasurer based on city code.
Okay, second. Is there a second? Okay, motion dies for a lack of second. Councilman Vaughn,
Motion to approve.
Councilman Legband,
I'll second that.
there's a motion to approve and a second.
I object. Point of order with regards to due process. Every agenda item that we have on the agenda. For the public to speak. Going from council comment to motion without taking public comment is out of order.
Okay, well taken. I just want to say, Jody Sanders served as our finance director for 14 years, held the title as city treasurer. I don't know how long that was, if it was that long or not as long as that. And, all my intention was tonight is that we have a new finance director, and obviously Ms. Sanders is in a new role as a city administrator. And the finance director's job is to be over the finances of our city. And, I want to formalize and let the public know that we have a city treasurer. I mean, and it's now Dan Goebel, our finance director. That's all this item is tonight. So I'll open up to public comment.
Thank you. Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. A point was made about state statute 16305. But your municipal code actually addresses that and already combined by ordinance because your city code was adopted by ordinance. So Mr. Councilman Yerger, what he stated as far as it goes to default to Dan because of being finance director and you haven't appointed another or merged another position is correct. It was before my time on the council that this position was combined. Obviously, Ms. Sanders has done a great job as director of finance and also took on the head of treasurer. Traditionally, that's held also by the clerk. That wasn't Tyler's cup of tea, and it remained with Ms. Sanders. So upon Dan Goebel stepping in that position, it automatically does default. But the position technically, you could say was actually combined by ordinance. And that's in your municipal code. Because if you do nothing other than that, then it already defaults. So I agree with the point made, but the ordinance was adopted unanimously by the council at the time. I believe it was 2017. So essentially that satisfied the state requirement for the state statute that was cited 16305.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, Councilman Yerger.
In light of the previous vote and what we have before us in resolution 2022-179, I'd like to offer two amendments. In the third whereas statement where it says the office of treasurer is typically held by the office of director. I don't believe that that's necessarily typical with regards to state law. State law would typically put it with the clerk. So I'd like that phrase to read, the statutory office of treasurer is merged with that of the director of finance as set forth in Fremont Municipal Code, section 2-511. Because we're not changing that municipal code. And then I would like to add a fourth whereas statement that says, the merger of the officer position of treasurer with the position of the director of finance will not create any additional compensation, and the merged position will follow the city salary ordinance and pay scale for the position of the director of finance. That's in agreement with what staff report. It's in agreement with the salary ordinance that we just passed and discussed when we said we weren't going to make any salary for the office of treasurer, it would be zero. So I think it's appropriate that we make those two amendments to the resolution to modify the third whereas statement and add the fourth one as I just read. I hope council will agree.
Let's take we'll take the amendment and then we'll get to your motion. Is there a second to the amendment? Motion dies for lack of second. Go ahead, Councilman Vaughn.
Motion to approve.
Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-1, Mayor.
Okay, item 13 is a resolution 2022-149 authorizing contract for City's Physicians Clinic, Inc., doing business as Methodist Physicians Clinic. We need to continue this again tonight. I know that legal reached out to Methodist to ask some of the questions, and we're still waiting on that. I will say I did speak with Dr. Eberly again in regards to this. He is extremely excited. He's a Fremonter through and through, wants to serve the city in any capacity, even if it's very limited like this position is. So, is willing to be patient and work as we continue to work through this process. So I just want to thank him for being willing to step up and do this. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to continue.
there's a motion to continue. There's no more debate. So is there a second? Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 15 is resolution 2022-172 allocating additional local option economic development funds for tech park infrastructure improvements.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. What I have brought to you tonight are two different options on paying for infrastructure at the tech park. We have had 3 change orders, which council has approved. We have one more change order that Public Works is working on. So I have that estimate included there. The total project estimate is $3.5 million, and $618,000 of that has been paid for paving at 29th Street and North Lincoln Avenue thus far. So the total funds remaining to fill the bill for this project are $2.8 million. If the CDBG grant for Tech Park is forgiven, those funds will go to fund this project. I know there are questions on whether or not those will be forgiven. And at this time, without a paper in my hand from the state saying yes or no, that I really can't answer that. I can tell you that at least one business in the Tech Park has amassed over 60 jobs in just that one organization alone. Whether or not those specifically fit the LMI requirements or made available to LMI, the state is looking into that, and I don't have an answer on that tonight. So the options before you tonight are to utilize the LB 840 Economic Development Funds for Tech Park, or we can continue using the sales tax streets and sales tax infrastructure when applicable funds to finance the remaining 2.8 million. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Councilman Yerger.
I assume that the questions that were posed by myself and perhaps other council members reached you with regards to this agenda item for tonight.
I was aware of the questions asking if the grant funds will be forgiven, our level of confidence, and I can't give a percentage on that. Like I said, it's not really something that I can see into the future on, unfortunately. We certainly hope that they're forgiven. If they are, the $975,000 will be used towards these infrastructure projects, if that's the option you go with.
Okay, could I have the clock stopped? I'd like to enter some documents into the record, please.
There a second to receive the documents? Councilman Vaughn. Councilman, you're on.
Sorry.
Councilman Ellis.
I'll second that.
Okay, cast your votes to receive the documents.
Motion carries 7-1, Mayor.
So what I put into the record were the 11 questions that were asked of staff, some of which I'm sure would have gone to you. 2 were specifically targeted to go to legal, and the rest would have been answered by anyone on staff that had the answers. These questions were to be answered and brought to this meeting and discussed as a part of the motion to continue. And so one of those that's before council in what I handed out are the 11 questions that were posed of staff. The other document that's there is the document that's referred in those questions with regards to the original analysis performed by Mr. Newton and Ms. Mitchell with regards to the overall investment in Tech Park at the time that was created. And at that time, it was $5.85 million, or roughly $73,500,000 per lot. And so part of the questions that were important to me for whether or not we were going to spend any more money on Tech Park when we already had 5.8.
We've already voted on to spend money. This.
We haven't voted on.
This is all about whether we use.
Point of order.
This is all about whether we use.
Councilman Lakeman will
Excuse me.
go. Hey, go ahead. Councilman Yerger, finish, please.
Okay, well, you're running off my time while he was visiting, and it's not tough. I had the floor. So, and thank you for interrupting. So it's always nice to have your thought appointed. So without answers to those questions with regards to how much we have invested, it's really hard, I think, for us to prudently decide whether or not it's fiscally responsible to spend another almost $3 million on top of the $6 million that we had invested before for Tech Park, when we don't have a recovery mechanism for those costs. We might collect a few $100,000 from the lot sales, but we are not going to recover $7 or $8 million of Tech Park streets and infrastructure because we don't have a mechanism. I would assert that if anything, there at least ought to be another option to your proposal that says access infrastructure cost to the landowners should be made as an assessment. Any reasonable developer in this town that I know of puts the costs of their infrastructure, streets, sewers, and everything else into the cost of their lots before they sell. We're putting in millions of dollars in Tech Park funds funded out of LB 840. And those are taxpayer funds that are going there. And instead of using that money to fix our streets and the like, we're using money to do Tech Park without a mechanism for recovery. So at least I would like an option 3 added to that for council to consider that says we're going to assess the infrastructure cost of the landowners as an option, not just take street funds or LB 840 associated street funds and pay it out of there and basically mortgage everything that's in LB 840 in order to pay for Tech Park. Do you have an objection to and a proposal that says that infrastructure costs should be paid for by the landowners?
Well, as the LB 840 plan administrator, I can't speak to the sale of the lots, but I do know that they are currently on hold so that we can look into those types of possibilities. But tonight, for the projects at hand, we have the 2 options here.
I make a motion to amend the resolution 2022-172 to add option 3, as I just stated. Option would be to assess infrastructure costs to the landowners rather than to pay out of tax funds.
I'm not gonna address that motion until we have a proper debate up here and everybody has a chance to speak and we have public comment. Councilman Lakeman. Councilwoman Ganem.
I was gonna say, this is a kind of a bee's nest because we inherited this tech park situation. And I hope we've learned from that experience that maybe we shouldn't be in the development business on that part. We could have taken different directions and we didn't. And through our decisions, though, I know we can't unring the bell. We can't undo the decisions that have already been made. We can't go back in the past because what's done is done. We have to go from where we are. And part of it, we have caused some of the delays that has increased cost. The city council, and I'm part of that too, we caused some of the increased cost. Most recent example was, yes, we approved lots not being sold. And that we said that was kind of $140,000 or $150,000 insurance policy against flooding for all those individuals out there. And that has cost, that's going to cost us, well, we had the change orders. You had a 25-year flood plan, but we went to the 100-year flood plan, and that's costing an additional $1 million. So our decisions that we've made as city council has also added to that cost. And we have continued. I think we need to see this through. And I'll yield to Councilman Legban. He was going to say we'd already voted on this, I believe.
Councilman Sukram.
Yeah, this tech park to me is no longer just a tech park. It's a business park. It is transformed over the years by city council vote and every which way. So you can't pull the plug on it now. We have to decide where we're going to take these funds from. So I would say, you know, the history of it goes all the way back to 2011, 12. And it started out one thing and got transformed into another. And we've been spending money on it, and we're getting to the point where the infrastructure needs to be finished. To finalize, if I'm correct, the sale of a couple lots or a final sale of lots by contract, right? So there is quite a bit at stake here. So we do need to make a decision, I think, one or the other. My personal opinion is the LB 840 money is probably where we should take it from, but that's my opinion. That's it.
Councilman Ellis.
A couple of questions. So at the end of the day, if we spend this 3.5 million, is that tech park going to be complete? Every lot will be available. Every lot will have access to a street. Every lot will have access to sewer lines and everything.
So it's 2.8 million. 618 has already been paid. So that was reduced. The 3.5 was reduced by that. But this specific project is for the paving, water, sewer, streets, and street lights on 29th and North Lincoln.
So we still have a lot more money. to
There's
put into
more to
this.
do. Yep. And as I said, that is why I'm not the one evaluating the lots or selling the lots, but that is why it is being evaluated, because the plan is to, they won't be as cheap as they were in the past. We'll be keeping that in mind going forward on the prices, that infrastructure needs to be built into that price as well.
So when you talk about the LB 840 funds, Ordinance 4078 set aside 3 individual columns of money: public safety, street improvement, and economic development. So when you're talking about LB 840, is that purely the economic development money
Yes.
and not the street improvement money?
Right. Mhm.
So you're saying in the economic development money, how much do we have in there right now?
There is 2.2 million, I believe, as of the end of August. That goes up. It's a 1 million as of August 31st. It's the end of September, and each month it goes up between $80,000 and $100,000.
$80,000 and $100,000 a month.
Right.
And so we really haven't had any activity in the LB 840 Economic Development Fund. There's not been any company coming in. I mean, the last one was the cement or not the cement, the dry storage area. And they essentially,
MCS.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they essentially
Mhm.
gave it back up, saying they're not going to pursue.
That was vertical cold storage.
Vertical cold.
MCS did come forward last January, February.
Okay.
They were awarded a contract.
Okay. Well, this project has been, it's just been a fiasco since day one. And I truly believe that the city ought to find out how to cut their losses, because we continue to spend good money after bad money and or bad money after good money. I can't remember, but it just seems like our streets are in dire shape right now. And that's all I heard over the last 2 weeks from people is stop the tech park, start putting the money back into our public streets. And I think anybody that goes for a jog or goes for a bike ride in this community definitely sees that. And so I think we as a council have let our citizens down by not taking care of the streets. And so that's why I'm thinking we've got to come up with another option here that says, what do we have to do to stop the bleeding? We've already put $6 million into it. You're asking for 2.8 more million. And it's just an embarrassment to this. I mean, I get a lot of citizens talking to me about our streets. And so it's really hard for me to vote anything on this going forward tonight.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, and the LB 840 funds do not fund streets, so we're not taking from those funds. And also the streets this work needs to be complete in order for our businesses to build and allow safe streets and lighting and that kind of things for their employees to come to work, drive the streets in and not dirt roads. So that's important as well to kind of bring this long project to an end too.
But
So-
it's not ending. I mean, we're going to be back,
Right.
but there's going to be
there's still
more
additional
streets out
yeah.
there that we need to do. And, I understand that we're going to increase the lot size or the price of the lot to
Mhm.
cover that. But it just seems never ending. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Jensen.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. Do I understand this correctly? That money that's going out there now was coming from the street funds. We want to stop doing that and put some of that responsibility onto the LB 840 money. Is that not correct?
The money is coming
I mean, we're
from,
just choosing which bucket this money's coming out.
right, yep, currently it's coming from the sales tax streets, and then the water portion is coming from sales tax infrastructure.
And we're going to, what we're saying, if we vote to use LB 840 money for that, then that money goes back into the streets.
Right. Mhm.
I'll just echo a couple of things here that I've heard. I do believe, yes, this goes back to 2011. And we did inherit this park. Part of it, of trying to turn it into a business park, was to well-intended or not, was to be able to save the $975,000 grant. And, looking back, I think we did learn lessons in regards to this and echoing, we shouldn't be in the development business. We're not set up for that. Developers are set up for that. But this is the facts right now, guys. We voted and approved to sell lots to businesses that are going into the park right now that have closed. Part of those require them to have streets and utilities to get to their lot. That is the minimum that we have to be able to service those that have actually, committed. And these are local businesses. I mean, these are that are willing to invest and grow. And I do believe this is going to be a great business park when all this gets done and these businesses start to come in. I think it's going to be this for the businesses going in is their home. I mean, this is what they're investing in. This is their life. I mean, this is their future. And I'll just echo the comments as, tonight we've approved all those sales. I mean, we've already approved all those sales of those lots. Tonight is essentially, where is the funding going to come from? And I think it's pretty clear it's coming from our economic development fund, taking it out of the streets and putting it into our economic development fund to fund the remainder of the improvements. And I want to thank city staff for coming forward with this idea. And, in seeing that there are funds still left in the LB 840 account to be able to fund this and take the pressure off of our streets. So that's the question tonight that's before us. I'll take any comments from the public.
Thank you. Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street, Fremont. Comment was had about when this started. It actually started in 2008 when construction and building spiraled downward. Fountain Springs decided to off-sell that lot. Gentleman bought it, partner in Roscoe 5, who then sold it to the city and more than doubled. 2011 would have been the start of that. However, a comment has been well made. We shouldn't be in the development business. It's not been handled well from the very get-go. You can't unring the bell. You can't go back and repeat, and you can't really stop this in motion. LB 840 is probably going to be the most common sense approach because we do have a lot of streets in disrepair. And citizens are tired of it. You have Bell Street project that's coming up. You've got the south part that has been stopped because of sale of Gavilon and they can't come to agreement yet. That has been flooded purposely because the city has ignored it for so long. Your council has inherited a boatload of headaches. And the biggest albatross is called Tech Park, which the comment was made, it is a business park. How do you go back and ask those that have been allowed to purchase land without the responsibility of infrastructure? No other developer will sell his property for that. I can guarantee you Sunridge hasn't. I can bet the bottom dollar that no other developer in town would sell the property at a loss and give away free infrastructure. That said, we've already done it. Prior council and your present council has already done it. It wasn't your decision. It was shoved at you by some poor administration in the past, and now you get to deal with it. I don't disagree. This is probably the only fund that will cause the least pain to the taxpayer and to those driving on these interesting streets. We have a number of them that are in disrepair. We actually have literally sold our streets for the bypass. The city has over $25 million in that east-southeast beltway of our own money. And so you've basically mortgaged future monies. There's going to be more money going to be asked on the table. This isn't going to be the end of it. You've got a lot of contracts that have been approved by past and present council that has allowed for free infrastructure. I hope that the LB 40 money keeps coming in. And I guess one of the biggest benefits is that even though we may have to wait 100 years plus for the return on investment to come back to fruition, you'll at least have some sales tax dollars coming back out of this now business park. And I think Councilman Sukran coined it best. It's no longer a tech park. It's turning into a business park.
Any additional comments from the public?
Yeah, Blair Horner, 1770 North Colson, Fremont. I'm not going to echo all the cliches and platitudes that have been said about this. Obviously, you guys know it's a headache. What I'm listening to tonight makes me wonder, if you act on some of these things, what kind of future problems you're going to be creating for yourself that are a whole different set of headaches than this. If I were sitting out there as a business owner and suddenly the rug got yanked out from under me, I think I'd be looking to someone for some financial assistance, and you don't know how much that's going to be. So, you guys, you've got a problem on your hand and you're looking back for a solution, and it's not going to find it there. You're going to find it looking forward. And I think the only thing you can do now is to finish the project. There's been a lot of commitments made. None of you probably like them. And no matter how bad of a taste that it leaves in your mouth, you're going to have to do it.
Steve Ray, 1445 North Irving. I understand what they've all said. I think you should have pulled the plug on this situation a long time ago. You just keep pouring more money and more money in there. And I don't know what's going to happen. You say you're going to increase the lot prices and stuff down the road. So now what are you going to tell some of them businesses that had to do it? I mean, the whole thing's been a fiasco from the get-go. So I guess the only option you really have is to go ahead and sink more money in it and finish 29th Street. But I wouldn't put any more money after this amount you're approving now. I wouldn't put another dime up there until I had somebody else paying for it. And I don't think there's any developer that would do that either unless he's crazy. And I think really the city, and I know it's not up to the council, but I think this city needs to have another vote on what they do with their monies and put more money. I think a lot of people were misled when they voted for that, splitting those Keno funds for the three things. Economic development should be way down. Our police and fire and street department should be getting the biggest bulk of that. And these people want to build businesses and come here. And I'm tired of hearing about TIF. Oh, it's a good idea, but only if we use your money, not our money, because we just can't see it happen. There's been a couple lawyers come here and say, well, if we don't get this money, then we're not going to do it. But it's a great idea. Well, it hasn't been a great idea in that tech park forever. So you're just faced with the problem of having to put more money there, but I would stop it at this point. After that, you get 29th Street done and stuff. That's it. No more money going up there.
Councilman Ellis.
Question for our attorney. You mentioned a couple of meetings ago that the lot owners out there that purchased this agreement, we had a rebate going to them, but there was no guarantee that that rebate was, there was a certain date and time where it kind of expired. Is that correct?
Yes.
So these lot owners were expecting a $12,000 rebate or whatever coming back, and that won't happen now.
The contracts that had the April 1st, 2022 deadline, correct?
Okay. Was there any promises in those contracts about the city providing infrastructure for them? Was there promises so that we're going to get ourselves into lawsuits if we don't provide?
There was the three purchase agreements that went out to the can cooker did include requirements for infrastructure being installed. Those three.
So those three lots that he's purchasing stated it, he needed his infrastructure put in place and he would not pay any additional fees. Is that proper?
Pay any additional fees for the infrastructure?
Yeah.
Correct.
But most of these other ones did not have that in their contract.
Correct.
Correct. So when a business is out in the middle of, and we're doing, the city's improving the streets, and they come along and say, okay, we're going to improve your street in front of your building. What do we do with that? Do the businesses pay a certain amount of money for that paving, or
It's
like a sidewalk? I own the sidewalks in downtown and I was paid for
You
the
could-
sidewalks.
usually have them pay for assessment. Depends on where the area is, and
So typically a business owner would expect some sort of an assessment when there's an improvement added by the city,
generally speaking.
generally speaking. Okay. So in this case, nothing. They got a cheap lot and they're going to get all the infrastructure for free.
Well, yeah, you saw the purchase agreements too. Yeah.
Okay. I really thank goodness that we have the LB 40 funds available, so it's not taking it out of the street funds. But I think this is allowed or a very big red flag to this is the Fremont, that LB 840 is actually coming up in 2024. City Administrator, is that correct? So that is actually going to be hitting the ballots in 2024. And I think the citizens of Fremont need to look long and hard on where that money is being distributed, because again, we need more to go to our police and fire, and less money to go towards other things right now. So, yeah, I guess, I'm thankful we have the LB 840 funds available. We can do as much as we can with what we've got. It's not taking any money out of the street funds. But again, it's something to look forward to in 2024 to see what the citizens decide to do.
Councilman Yerger.
Yes. This whole thing is really pretty troubling to me. I understand the dilemma that we have and that what faces council, and we've started something, and what are you going to do to finish where we are? However, I am really concerned with regards to where we are and even what we're being presented this evening, in the sense that the total project estimate here is $33,500,000, not $2.8 million. It's all resident on whether or not we collect the almost $1 million from the state grant. Tied into all these contracts was a pledge to give us employees in lieu of the $12,000 400 rebate that they were supposed to get per acre out of that $975,000. And council has just reiterated they have no right to that. They're not going to get that. And so some of the questions that were asked that weren't answered were those kinds of questions. The surety of whether or not we can actually affect the $975,000 from the state. Absent that, this cost is a lot higher than is being pitched tonight. It's not just that there might be some future costs. It's if we don't collect that money from the state because of headcount or the way it was configured in the original state grant with regards to the amount of salary that could be paid for those jobs. If the city doesn't prevail on any of those and we don't get to keep the 975, this is a $3.5 million and growing project. And so it's a little, I think, disingenuous for the taxpayers to be always putting in these costs. And I'm really troubled by the fact that I turned in questions and I asked those to be answered at this meeting, 11 of them, many of which were employee related, as to what are our assurances that we'll have the 975? Because if we don't have some reasonable assurance that we're going to get those, then this project cost isn't $2.8 million, of which we don't yet even have the money, because the balance $2.1 million today. So we're mortgaging what's going to be coming in, and we may need to mortgage it even more than that if in fact we don't get the 975, because the lot owners out there decide not to contribute their employees or to pay them more than what would meet the grant requirement from the original, and the state doesn't give us that, and all that's in limbo. And I asked for some clarity on all of those things and got nothing. I asked for some clarity on whether or not there were other options we could look at as to whether or not we could collect the money on behalf of the taxpayers rather than take it from economic development, which should be used to stimulate small business. And Councilman Ellis just asked, isn't mostly appropriate that in fact you assess? And the answer is yes. And other than for 7 lots that built into their contract, we'll never pay a dime for infrastructure. Nobody else did. We ought to be seriously looking at whether or not we follow the standard procedures of making assessments to recoup at least some of this cost, rather than to put this on the full taxpayer. And so I reiterate my original question in the form of, I want this item continued to the next meeting for 2 reasons. The questions that were originally asked to be answered at this meeting, which were not, need to be asked and answered so that the council can make a fully informed decision about whether or not that 975 is even something that we could potentially obtain. And 2, whether or not there are other options, as I did, and as Councilman Ellis reiterated and legal counsel just asserted, that typically it's an assessment. There may be other mechanisms. Maybe there's some way of dealing with it on a partial basis to at least get some recovery, other than to putting it all on the taxpayers of Fremont, either in the form of we're not going to fix your streets, or we're not going to use economic development money to stimulate small business. Both of those options are viable, I suppose, to complete the tech park, but they're not particularly good ones. The best one is those that get the advantage should pay. And that's the lot owners out there, other than for the ones that contracted with us and said, we'll never pay a dime for infrastructure. Okay, we probably can't do anything. but we shouldn't just let everything else skate and be added to the taxpayer. So I make a motion to continue these items till those questions are answered. And until another option is at least considered and placed on the resolution 2022-172 to go beyond using economic development or sales tax street funds. There should be some other option or multiple option for funding to give taxpayer recoupment of the investments that we're putting out there. So I make a motion to continue for those reasons.
Okay, motion to continue ceases debate. Is there a second? Councilman Ellis.
Second that.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion fails 3-5.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2022-172. I'm sorry, the LBA, the option of resolution 2022-172.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second the motion.
Okay. The vote is to approve the resolution with using the funds out of LB 840 Local Option Economic Development Fund. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-1, Mayor.
Item 16 is an executive session to discuss potential or threatened litigation. Is there a motion? Councilman Jensen?
I'll make the motion move to go into executive session for the purpose of threatened litigation and for further reasons to protect the public interest.
Okay, is there a Councilman Sukram? Motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of potential or threatened litigation and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? The pending motion is to go into executive session for the purpose of potential or threatened litigation and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Cast your vote.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
A motion to go into executive session for the purpose of potential or threatened litigation and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest has been approved. Discussions will be limited to potential or threatened litigation. No official actions or votes will be taken during the executive session. And I'll go back to the back conference room. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Once the school board meeting. Huh?
So. No, this is. So 11% stays on valuation.
Jail fund is not.
The school district is adopting smaller than the city. So it went up some, they're keeping it the same, you know, but they use their tax or something like that. So it's being. But they said. They set up because nobody ever. Nobody ever intends it, so you know, but those cards showed up. You know, the gratification to the here. It's gotta be. That Senator.
David knows.
Senator did all of that. And it's gotta be. I mean,
No, Vargas also sponsored it. Vargas was a sponsor on this.
I mean, it might be a little bit, you might want to think it out. Make sure the T's across the hydrogen for you. Part of the real problem. I call it that.
How is the Vargas man?
Take a picture of what.
And it is, let's see, the interesting thing, they did not list these four on here. And according to LD 644, anybody participating in that public hearing is to be. And it also didn't get.
I don't know where the link is. I don't think they.
It came from us.
But the problem there is they didn't. School board. Bring that in the past. Not getting in time, really. I called Dad back that one, said first one. Okay, so I called once.
On the 26th.
Well. Kind of screw up. That's the first, it's that here, but. We didn't get a copy. We got it in some way, we couldn't get out proof it. So something like that, it seems that the first year it's been done. So they're still working to build out, but they took the notice that census like what was interested about. But there wasn't a single one notice and struggling. So they sent it out. They were like, really, and then, you know, the world is not around the years of place to show up. They can't put out another notice. Should be like, hey, we're at this other location, not this location. Then you'll just get accused of trying to get the mobile board that's trying to get. Now, the one thing you can do, like, okay, we put it here, but there's going to be 800 people who show up with their efficiency field. So it's the you just have to make the best decision possible. You got to respond to Fred. Not a whole. Well, because I called him, he said, that's why I was, you know, and I don't know why they kind of live there at PSU building instead of the big, people were in the hall.
And then.
Well, it's similar, you don't know.
In the fallout room.
Yeah, and you were here on fifth year, and there's only like 2 board members. They would be smaller than we thought, would be about.
We should have.
I did ask Fred, who set that meeting up on it, city council? City council. Well, I want to go and thought that'd be a good night. And you didn't know how long you don't know. City council meet. He said, well, not really. He said, you know what I mean? Yeah, I know what I mean. I think you just messed up. I didn't care. You asked me. Yeah, but. But it's also, there's also a lot of cities.
That's all right.
So you
They all
go
don't know.
Tuesday, ours is on a Tuesday, Scribner's is on a Wednesday, so they probably have it for the whole town. But I mean, some people use Scribner might be like, hey, I live in Scribner, you know, put it on our Scribner. The only thing was loading the new.
Yeah, but Logan dudes, nobody asked that when Logan dudes thing was up, they're going from 0.77 or something. And then it said they were going to 0.084, which actually it's 0.84. They're increasing 7 cents per 100, but the way it was worded, it's like, holy shit, they dropped the hell off.
So tremendously did this all the time. What they would do is you come to budget meetings, they would compare communities' levies to each other. So they would look at like every one of the suburbs in Kansas City and very popular. Their mill levy is 8, and our mill levy is 62. You know, we got to reduce our budget by 80% just to make, well, because of the value of the homes in that area, 8 8 mills, raised $80 million. In Junction City, where I was, 52 mil raised $6 million. So I have a lot of people meeting over there. They're not grasping the school. They're like 1.64 when you allow free ones.
For what was the
Right.
purpose of the monies?
But, well, they don't give that out tonight. You attend tomorrow night's meeting and they'll give it to you. So they have, that's the thing, there's 2 budget hearings now. They have the hearing, which is the first hearing, and now they have the regular schedule. They always, that they will actually vote on the levy. I don't know.
That's where the Pittsburghs are gonna come out, I think.
But most people don't understand, just because the school board is asking for 10% more. It's not gonna change your tax. Because the county is already assessed you, that's what you're gonna pay in 2022, what they've assessed you to pay. The school board. It might give the county more money if they don't ask for like. So they not their spending because of the bonds that they got? No, he said it was, it's due to, mostly due to their. Well, cost 87% of the budget valuation goes to the value, not, it naturally goes up because of growth. Yeah, but so they're still asking for more than they only allow 2%, they're asking for. It's kind of hard to think that, they're asking for 1.6 over more. And they said 87% of their budget is for teachers, janitor, that kind of stuff. Did I read the valuation or something? And it might be 11 there instead of here. I can't remember what it is, but that's probably where they're getting grants.
So you from Junction City?
I was in Junction City for 7 years. As city person.
Ah. What Riley?
Yeah, pretty wild. Like when the city got 3 months later, what's unique about, every community has its issues, so. Junction City had part of that for sure. So in Kansas, it's home rule, so if the legislature doesn't pass the law, it's uniform across the entire state, for example, it has smoking law they passed in, for example, in Omaha. You're gonna do these are this is how you're gonna be treated, and then small town the rest, this is how you're gonna be treated. So it's home rule state, so if they treat municipalities different like that, Junction City or Manhattan or whoever, they can basically charter their own law that's completely separate from the state statute. So you have communities that, grow and they're different in many ways. Look at Fremont or locating very similar communities in a lot of ways, because we're Dillon state, and so all of the state statutes apply to all of the cities, uniformly, unless, it's a metropolitan class city, there's a little different margins and things like that, but basically, you don't do anything the state doesn't allow you to do. In Kansas, you can do whatever you want to look up. Unless the
And that's
state
interesting.
prohibits.
That's
uniform.
interesting. Federal allows state allows county and communities. It's just,
They're,
you can't do anything unless you're allowed to do by state statute.
they're proud of their own rule, they're like, we're proud.
And that's why Kansas has been an interesting state.
Go visit Manhattan and then go visit Junction City. Don't tell me. Go into one community and their military laws are different than their.
Garden City, Kansas.
So, yeah, and then the interesting thing on the state level there is you have basically 2 parties, one Democratic Party, and so you have Democratic voters there all the time. Because they're politicians in the law.
In Kansas, their heart, bless their heart.
So
I thought
you
they
have.
actually was Republican.
Right now you have, right now you have Kelly, Democratic governor, or that Sam Brown. that's
Amen,
governor.
sister,
No, we gotta get
yes.
rid of, and it was Kathleen Sebelius, she was the Department of Services Director, she left, Brown back out elected. And then, they made decisions that upset a lot of Republicans, then they told themselves. This, say, Democrat.
I went after
So now,
Fremont,
oh, they don't like that, so.
governor of
Republicans come
Kansas
back
in
together.
1996.
But it's cyclical, like if you look at the street in Kansas, it's.
Whatever his name is. Kovach, didn't he run against him? Joan Penny?
Yeah. So.
I can hear much of your name, my son-in-law.
Oh, he was,
Oh, what? I said, I'm scared when she was. She and her secretary was still got some trouble. I think she wrote around that though. No, she's when I was at KCA, around or Governor Carlin. At cases, I filed suit against her in 1996. Yeah, she was. That's how she got away. How'd your wedding go? That was good. Yeah. We just talked about the weather could have been better. How'd you have the service at losing my stepbrother's backyard? Oh, that's good. Okay, congratulations. No, no,
I can't believe you're old enough to have had all those positions.
Oh, yeah, so. I went to Kansas State and I got a master's degree at a young age, so I was like 25 years old, so I became state clerk when I was 26.
Now, the Kansas State, that's at Lawrence, I was getting.
It's yeah. So there's purple hats.
Purple Merples. My girl skated in Manhattan, Kansas.
Well,
I kind of like it around the
ocean. Yeah.
Ellen Tolson was one I used to run. And then be moving company. Bagley, Sterling Bagley. The theaters all Kansas.
So what was the name of it?
B&B moving company.
We had the movie theater in Junction City.
I worked on-
I
I worked on 17 theaters in Kansas and Oklahoma, Tennessee. B&B moving.
Yeah.
Sterling Bagley, or 7 roses one time in my. They have 7.
I think they're doing some cases for the theaters.
Did you ever do?
Yeah.
Did you ever do anything in Palomar sequences? Have you ever heard of Palomar?
Yeah.
That's what my daughter.
Unique name.
Pardon me.
I've been
Have you really?
delivered 2 electric vehicles and a brand new light country Suburban.
You know, when Tyson tried to come in, they tried to sneak it in there, and that town. Got him out. I think- Well, they're building a dog kennel out there now. You know how many people that might be?
Okay. Take a motion, Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to come out of executive session.
Okay, Councilman Vaughn.
Second.
Cast your votes. Oh, we got to reset it. Okay, go ahead.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Councilman Gibson,
So moved.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned.